So now let's talk about some examples, and hopefully this will clarify if you are still a bit confused. Well, as I said, with example with anxiety, that came into my mind when I was doing the video, but I think it's a good example because you can do it from one way, assuming that it's totally biological, another way assuming it's totally interpretations, or a combination, which is the middle point. But I also have an example in here, two examples actually. One is a very practical example when we are thinking about tables in the industry. So the research question from a positivist paradigm regarding tables in the industry can be, what is the best height for a table? If you think about that question, the ontological assumption, we assume that the reality that we want to study is that it already exists in there. The ideal height for a table exists in there. I just need to do tests. I just need to collect data, and I will discover the answer. So ontological assumption, that is something that already exists. The answer is in there. Epistemological assumption, thinking about knowledge, which knowledge is valid to answer to this question, you need to collect very objective data. That's why maybe the length in centimeters about people, for example, if your population, the population you are targeting, you want to measure them, or you want to measure all the tables that are in the market, and maybe you do some statistical test. That is the methodological aspect. So for epistemology, you construct knowledge based on very objective data. And the method, you can do several things. For example, in here, the suggestion is to use a data set of different tables and cells, and maybe you do a regression model, statistics, and then you say, okay, the best is this. This is the best height based on cells, based on height of population. It's a very objective answer from the positivist point of view. Now, a different and also very practical example is, if my question is, why do people sometimes use tables to sit? People shouldn't use tables to sit. People should use tables to eat or to work, not to sit in a very strict sense, right? But people don't care, and then people sit. If that is my question, if I want to understand why people sit, I am assuming that the table can be perceived differently, that the reality of what is a table is not a very objective definition of this is a table. No, the definition of a table depends on interpretation, so it can be seen differently. To generate knowledge that will be able to answer to this research question, I need data, and I need knowledge that is built on perceptions and interpretations again. So probably measuring things is maybe not the best approach if I want to understand why do people. And finally, methodological assumption. If I want to understand what people or why people do it, maybe I can do like interviews or focus groups, something that will help me to abstract on the interpretations and perceptions. Now, let's talk about another example, but this is a little bit more scientific, or if I can call it, from the positivist paradigm. Let's think about this research question. I want to understand what is the effect of multicultural boards in financial performance of non-public firms. It seems like a research question of a thesis. So in that question, try to reflect which are the ontological assumptions, the epistemological assumptions, and the methodological assumptions. Try to do it, maybe pause the video and try to reflect. Well, the answer is in here, but try not to read them. And then play it again and reflect if you came to the same conclusion. The ontological assumption is that there is an effect in there that you want to discover again. The effect is in there. I want to discover the effect. So to do that, I need to create knowledge based on very objective data. So maybe data about multicultural boards and financial performance, and then connecting that to the method, probably a survey or probably a database where I have data from multicultural boards and financial performance, and then I link it through statistical methods. You know what I mean? That is the idea of the positivist paradigm. Reflect if you came to kind of a similar conclusion. And now let's switch. Let's go to the other extreme of the spectrum. Why, in a similar topic, but from the other side? The question can be, how do non-public firms implement a multicultural board? It's also multicultural board, it's kind of same topic, but different approach, different perspective. The ontological assumption in here is that multicultural boards can be interpreted differently, and then that is linked to different outcomes because of the interpretation and how it works with different people, different contexts. So the ontology is that multicultural boards is a concept that is up for interpretation and perception. So knowledge should be constructed again through data that is rich in interpretations. And the methodological assumption, maybe you can do a lot of interviews, you can do, again, focus groups, you can do a case study to understand how interpretations construct the implementation of a multicultural board in these non-public firms. So I hope that it's easier to understand why one or the other. And then to finish in this video, let's reflect a little bit on this. Can be useful for you also when you're thinking about your research topic, because I think it's totally linked to the research topic. But how can you choose the paradigm? Positivism, interpretivism, on middle point. So reflect on this. What is the nature of your research objectives? And maybe your research objectives are not even that clear, so go to the next question. What available data do you have? I think that is super important. Do you have available data of a person that you can interview? Like, I mean, do you have access to a CEO who can tell you a story? And then maybe you can also interview the accountant, you can interview. Well, the data that you have is very interesting. So why don't you strategically set some objectives that are in the interpretivism? Why, maybe it sounds a bit Machiavellic, but why not, based on your data, you propose on some assumptions? I think, and I'm being honest in here, that is the best approach when doing a thesis. Don't overcomplicate things. Think about what do you have, and then based on that, strategically set your objectives. Similar to this, what available resources do you have? Do you have the skills? Do you have the time? Do you have the supervisor that can help you on that trend? And maybe the last thing, because I hope you don't have, it's not religion, it's not football. I hope that you don't have like a personal stance, like you will say, oh, I really like this and this is bad, or I really like this is bad. Both are science, both work well. It depends on what you want to study. So my suggestion is be relaxed and don't pick up a team. It's not football. In football, you should pick up a team, but not in here. It's all about the research question. So my suggestion in this is very personal, is reflect on these two things, especially the data. What data can you access? Can you access a big data set? Can you access a sample of people that you can survey? That's your answer. Go with the positivism side. Can you interview people? Can you do focus groups? Because maybe you are part of a family business, and then people will say yes to you. Or maybe you're working and you have good connections. Then go for the interpretivism. And also reflect. Do you have the skills, or can you develop them? Do you have a supervisor that can help you with this? Because this, well, I think you can be flexible, and this you should be very strategic on how to decide. As a conclusion from all of this, you need to have, it's like an avenue or a freeway. You have to be coherent. If you assume this, you have to go here, you have to go here, everything like that. The same language, the methods, everything coherent, not this pick. I am recently starting to supervise a master student who in the first meeting, and it's also totally normal, sometimes it happens, he proposed kind of incoherent things. It's like he's saying, I want to play football, so I brought a basketball ball. And I said, no, well, if you want to play football, you need to bring the football. No, but I don't like that ball. That ball is ugly. I like this ball, the basketball ball. Well, if you like the basketball ball, change your objective. You want to play basketball. No, but I don't want to play basketball. I want to play football with the basketball ball. No, it doesn't work like that. You're going to fail because it's disconnected. So after a few iterations, he changed, and now he's in a line. So you are free to choose whatever you want to study, and you are also choose to whatever method you want. You're free in every sense, but you have to choose one and then be consistent. You can play football or you can play basketball, but be consistent. So I think that's all for this video. In the next videos, we're going to go into a little bit more of practical aspects and just a quick conclusion. So, well, we're almost done.